Hi guys, Arvind back here again, and in today's episode we're going to see why vegans don't wear silk. The victims of the silk industry are obviously the silkworms. Let's learn a bit more about them. Silkworms are akin to butterflies in the fact that they have an egg, larval and pupal stage before they turn into a silk moth. The silkworms most commonly used in the production of silk are known as the Bombyx mori. This species of silkworms is a selectively bred and domesticated version of the wild insect, the Bombyx mandarina. As this insect has been selectively bred to meet the standards of the silk industry, they have suffered from several severe disabilities. For example, although these insects have wings, they cannot fly because they are too large in size. In fact, they even have mouths that do not function, which means they cannot even eat food. The silk produced by these insects is known as mulberry silk because the main source of food for these worms are the leaves of the mulberry plant. Now, after eating for weeks, these worms start to grow larger and start shedding their skin. And after about 20 to 30 days, these worms are now ready to transition into their next stage of life, the pupal stage. A long, thin, shiny filament is shot from the spinneret located in their mouth, and this is used to wrap around them to form the cocoon. And this shiny thread, my friends, is what is known as silk. We need to understand the step-by-step process of how silk is made. A breeder is the one who breeds the moths and then sells their eggs. The eggs are now sold to the next person down the line, the silk farmer. The silk farmer now takes the newly hatched worms and places them onto trays which contain mulberry leaves, and these trays are placed into sheds. These worms are taken care of until they become cocoons. Now, those worms who fail to transform in time will be either killed out or will be thrown out and be left for dead. The cocoons will now be taken to the cocoon market to be sold to the silk factory. The factory's job is to draw silk out of the cocoons. Now, keep in mind, the worms inside the cocoons are still alive. The cocoons are now thrown into boiling water and the worms suffer an agonizing and painful death while drowning in scalding hot water. Now, this process allows the factory workers to remove the silk from the cocoon as a single thread without damaging it. These silk threads are then sold to the weavers who use the threads to create silk clothing. As we've learned before, veganism states that it is wrong to cause intentional pain and suffering to another sentient being. But what exactly constitutes as a sentient being? A being that can feel pain and suffering, a being that is conscious, a being that shows value towards its own life is considered sentient. I most definitely agree that insects are not as complex as birds, mammals, reptiles, etc. But insects do possess a brain and a nervous system. Now, the science behind the sentience of insects is actually quite vague because scientists postulate that insects can only experience nociception, which is not pain. But there is absolutely no doubt that insects desire to live and value their life and will struggle and fight to survive just like us. It is silly to think that throwing an insect into boiling hot water does not constitute as cruelty. But we need to look beyond the cruelty aspect here because the bottom line is we do not have the right to enslave, exploit or use another being who desires to live free. Silkworms don't exist on earth for humans. Neither did God nor millions of years of evolution put silkworms or any animal on earth so that humans could use them. Please understand that the breeding of any animal is in itself a fundamental violation of their rights. Silk comes from animals and therefore can never be vegan. The concept of ahimsa silk was coined by a person named Kusuma Rajaya. The idea behind it is that the cocoon will be used to extract silk only after the worm has turned into a moth and has left the cocoon. Now, the reason this is not followed in the conventional silk production is because the moth chews a hole in order for it to exit the cocoon and also leaves a reddish brown stain on the cocoon. This makes the extraction of the silk difficult and also reduces the luster and value of the silk. Now, is this form of silk cultivation vegan? Absolutely not. Where do you think they get these cocoons from? From breeders, which means it once again involves the breeding of another being. And as we have just learned before, it is unethical for us to breed another animal. We also learned earlier that these moths suffer from severe disability. So even if they are allowed to escape from the cocoons, how on earth are they going to survive if they can't even fly or eat? Ahimsa silk is beneficial for the human, not the moth. which most definitely makes it Himsa silk. For those of you who are now worried and thinking, but wait, I can't wear cotton clothing for an auspicious day or during a religious occasion, don't worry, you can purchase artificial silk. Yes, artificial or also known as synthetic silk is now available on the market. And when you're buying this, all you have to ensure is that your clothing consists entirely of artificial silk and there is no mixture of real silk with it. It takes the lives of over 50,000 innocent silkworms to produce just one silk saree. Now you really need to ask yourself, is your fashion statement or culture really worth more than someone else's life? How do we humans justify controlling someone else's reproductive cycle, killing their children and then using them as a resource? Yeah, I know they're just worms, but that's the beauty of veganism. They are just worms. If I can recognize that I don't have the right to hurt a worm, I can most definitely recognize that I don't have the right to harm another human being. Do the right thing, ditch silk and go vegan today.